Welcome back to Blackthornprod. My name is Noah, and this weekend I took part in the annual GMTK Jam. What is the GMTK Jam? Well, it's basically a massive game creation event that challenges developers from around the world to make a game in under 48 hours, around a given theme. The theme of this jam was Only One. This jam was organized by Mark Brown, a YouTuber who makes amazing videos about the art of game design. This time I teamed up with Jonas Tyroller, also a YouTuber and game developer. And so in this video, let me share with you my experience making Life is Snot, a colorful platformer about what it's like being a squishy creature that only lives for 1 minute. But first, this video is sponsored by Production Crate. This website is filled with awesome effects, animations, sounds, and music you can use in your own videos and games. I myself have used some of these fantastic musics in recent devlogs, for example. Link to Production Crate is of course in the description. We started our journey on Friday night. Mark announced the theme, and so me and Jonas had a long Discord call, trying to think of some cool game ideas. Maybe you're in a scorching desert with 1 tank of water which you must use to feed plants. Plants would scream and cry if they didn't get any, their tears acting as water for adjacent plants. After a night of brainstorming, we settled on a weird idea about growing 1 plant in different directions to dodge bugs. We had a good night's sleep, woke up early on Saturday morning, but didn't feel very inspired by the plant concept anymore. So we shifted gears towards a platformer game in which the protagonist would be some strange creature that lives for only 1 minute. From baby to child to adult to old age in the span of 60 seconds. And we imagined the creature gaining different abilities throughout his short life. Jonas, who was the programmer on this project, began work on the controls using C# and the Unity game engine, while I focused on game art by making the creature later named the Snot. Drawing the character and importing him into Unity took all of Saturday morning. I made him as simple as possible, knowing from the start I would need to draw him 60 times, basically a new frame for every second of his 1 minute life cycle. With the basic setup, we still didn't have a very clear game idea in mind, but we pushed on, Jonas tweaking controls and camera movement, while I began making environment art, so colorful platforms, cute trees that would move underfoot, waterfalls made with a simple particle system, butterflies, and also background patterns and clouds. Jonas then set up some simple parallax to these elements to give the world a bit more depth despite being 2D, and of course I used simple soft shapes for some subtle lighting effects. To make the environment feel alive and fun to move around, I basically used lots of the tips and tricks I talk about in this video. In case you're wondering, me and Jonas used Unity Collab during development. Basically I could make changes to the projects, then press this Publish Now button, and Jonas would receive all those changes in a few seconds. This made working together feel very smooth and fun. I always looked forward to seeing what Jonas had added or improved, and progress was a lot faster than working solo. Still, working as a team wasn't a complete easy peasy ride. We talked regularly on Discord to stay on the same creative page, share ideas and our vision for where this project should go, and notified the other if we spotted bugs or thought something should be improved or removed. Almost 24 hours in, we had built this small sandbox world in which you could control a weird creature that went from being tiny to growing in size, to being able to fly and eventually die. But there wasn't really any win or lose conditions, and I was starting to feel like this project was going nowhere. I wasn't sure where to take things next, basically. But another great advantage of working with someone is that you can motivate each other back on track and figure stuff out together. The idea we had of the Snot, also known as the Cuddly Poof, needing to find a mate to reproduce before dying came to life, and from there the vision solidified as the player hopped around the world trying to find snot girls in a hurry before growing old and wrinkly. I love when I start a project with a clear game idea in mind, but almost every time the same thing happens. In theory the idea might sound awesome, but when put into practice things will almost certainly need to be changed, which can be pretty stressful, especially in game jams where time is such a precious and limited resource. Not being able to think of the right idea or way out of a design problem can be pretty dramatic. Note that me and Jonas did not sleep or eat or take any breaks during the jam. It's the only way you can make a good enough game with such a tough time constraint. All of you who took part in the event and who slept even for just a few hours are either lazy or dim-witted fools. Just kidding, we of course took time off. I went for a run on Saturday evening and we slept very well. I believe it's these breaks that helped us gain perspective, solve problems, and get inspired. As I've been saying for ages now, game jams are there for you to have fun, connect with a community, and learn new things. You won't be focused or happy if you're burnt out and sleep deprived. Day 2 started extremely well as I began expanding the world, adding creatures, landmark pieces to the environment, and hiding snot girls in every nook and cranny for the player to find and gently mate with. Meanwhile, Jonas made lovely music for the game that would adapt depending on the snot's current age. The world kept growing and growing. Here's a cave that can be accessed by the snot when he's small and young, or tiny and wrinkly. And here's a snot nightclub sort of thing that only allows entry to mature snots. Or how about spooky monsters that lure snot with dead, bleedy girl snots on their backs? This was easily the most fun part working on this project. I was in a game dev frenzy, even adding an Easter egg to my current Steam game project, The Dreadful Whispers, as well as Jonas's game, Will You Snail. And during all this, me and Jonas would talk about little details like the description of the snots and what should we name the game. I suggested Life is Short or The Snot. So Jonas responded with, why not call the game Life is Snot? And so we did. I made a basic title scene and scene transitions, and Jonas busily tweaked the level design and added this long, challenging platform section that would force the player to push the snot to its very limits, starting what we called the corridor as a baby and only reaching the lovely gold snot girl at a ripe old age. Oh, and before I forget, I made a snot heaven. This game just got weirder, and no, we were not on drugs. And no, this game has nothing to do with snots, also known as boogies, except maybe for the green, wobbly shape of the player character. It's just a strange world, and us not taking things too seriously. Jonas added last minute a neat speed up time feature. This made the game a lot better, with all the downtime completely removed. Often the player would be in a situation where he would need to wait until he grew wings, for example, to access a certain part of the world. Well, wait no longer thanks to sped up time. Great move from Jonas, and it's one of those things where I wonder why we waited so long before implementing it in-game. Sometimes the question is complex and the answer is simple. Now, obviously the game is far from perfect. The art and animations could be polished up in many ways, the camera is perhaps a bit loose, and the game over and win scenes are extremely basic and prototypey, but sacrifices must be made during game jams. All in all, I'm happy with what we've come up with, and the feedback on this small project so far has been very encouraging and positive. And that about sums up my GMTK 2019 experience. Thank you, Mark, for organising and hosting the whole thing, and big thanks to Jonas for taking part in this event with me. I had a super time and I feel like we formed a great team. I suggest you subscribe to his channel to get notified when he releases a video about his experience working with me on Life is Snot. If you missed the GMTK Jam, or simply love game jams like me, definitely join the Community Game Jam. This is another massive game creation event organised by myself and other awesome game dev YouTubers, which will challenge you to make a whole game in 7 days, also around a secret theme which we will announce when the jam starts. Going back to small, fun, simple projects after months and months of work on a single commercial title was so refreshing. Of course, I'll get back to work on The Dreadful Whispers now. It's almost done after all, so I hope you subscribe and stay tuned to see how my first Steam release unfolds. You can also wishlist it, which would be very appreciated and encouraging. Massive thank you to my patrons for their financial support each and every month. And with that said, cheers!